When I woke up, the first thing I noticed wasn't the pain. It was the ceiling, flat white, to close. Not my bedroom. Not my condo. A sharp ache ran down my spine, deep and burning, like my body was still being held together by wires. I tried to move my legs. They felt distant, heavy, like they belonged to someone else. A monitor beeped beside me. Slow, steady. Hospital. Memory slammed into place. 9-hour spinal surgery. LCL wool. Months of pain leading up to this. "You're awake," a nurse said softly, appearing at my side. Surgery went well. My throat felt raw. How long? Almost 9 hours. "You're in recovery." Relief flickered through me. Thin, fragile, but real. I had made it through. The worst part was over. Then she handed me my phone. "Your family's been calling nonstop." The screen lit up. T-San missed calls. My chest tightened. My first thought was that someone had died. My second thought was my sister's wedding. I opened my voicemail. The first message was from my father. Time-stamped 4 hours into my surgery. I pressed play. His voice was calm, almost cheerful. "Holly, honey, it's Dad. Don't worry. Everything's handled." My stomach dropped. "We sold your condo today. Found a cash buyer. Closed quickly." I stopped breathing. "We needed the money for Megan's wedding. You know how important this is." My vision blurred, and it had nothing to do with anesthesia. "You were unconscious, so we signed for you." It just made sense. Signed for me. The room felt too small. "You re-single anyway? You weren't really using that place. You'll understand." The voicemail ended. Gone. My condo. My home. 8 years of saving. 8 years of overtime. Every sacrifice I'd made to own something outright. Sold. While I was unconscious on an operating table, the nurse noticed my face. "Ma'am, are you okay?" I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I stared at the ceiling and felt something inside me harden into clarity. Cold, precise. They thought they'd won. They thought I was helpless. They were wrong. Because lying there, barely able to move, I made one phone call. Not to them. I wish I could say what my parents did shocked me. It didn't. What shocked me was how quickly. My brain stopped asking why and started replaying every moment that led here, like evidence lining itself up without being asked. This wasn't a mistake. It was a pattern. Growing up, there were 2 daughters in our house, but only one of us ever mattered. Megan was 3 years younger than me, blonde, loud, effortlessly charming, the kind of kid adults bent down to listen to, the kind teachers described as special. I was the other one, the quiet one, the responsible one, the one who didn't need attention at least. That's what everyone decided for me. Whenever Megan cried, the world stopped. Whenever I struggled, I was told to be strong. "She'll be fine," my mother used to say whenever relatives asked about me. "Holly can take care of herself." That sentence followed me my entire life. When Megan forgot her homework, my parents drove it to school. When I forgot mine, I learned consequences. When Megan failed her driving test, my parents paid for lessons. When I passed mine, no one came to watch. At 18, Megan got a credit card to build her confidence. At 18, I got a reminder that rent existed. I moved out for college with 2 suitcases and a part-time job. Megan stayed home until she was 26, drifting between hobbies that never quite became careers. When I graduated, my parents didn't come. Megan had an audition that day. A small commercial. She didn't get the part. When I bought my condo at 27, my first real win, my father didn't say congratulations. He said, "Why didn't you help your sister instead? She needs money more than you need an investment." That was the moment something inside me quietly broke. Still, I kept hoping. Hope is stubborn like that. Megan became an influencer. Or at least, she said she was. 12,000 followers, most of them suspiciously silent. She posted photos of brunches, gym selfies, and inspirational quotes she didn't live by. My parents funded all of it. When Megan turned 21, they bought her a car. When I turned 21, I worked double shifts to pay tuition. When Megan got engaged, they lost their minds. She met Daniel at a charity event. He was polite, quiet, for money. Old money. The kind my parents instantly respected. Suddenly, everything revolved around the wedding. The venue. The dress. The guest list. The image. And then, 5 days before my surgery, my phone rang. It was my mother. "We need to talk about the wedding fund," she said brightly. I remember gripping the phone, my other hand pressed against my aching back. "I'm having surgery in 5 days, Mom." I know, she said quickly. "But this is important. The venue alone is $80,000. I closed my eyes. "And Megan found the perfect dress," she continued. "It's $22,000, but she deserves it." "That's a lot of money," I said carefully. "Well, Daniel's family is very wealthy," she replied. "We can't look poor." There it was. The real reason? "I already gave you $20,000 for the engagement party," I reminded her. "That was months ago," she snapped. "This is different." "I can't," I said. "I'm about to go under anesthesia. I need to focus on my health." There was a pause. Then her voice turned cold. "Fine, we'll figure it out without you." Like always. The line went dead. I stared at my phone, then around my condo. The walls I'd paid for. The floor I'd walked on every exhausted night. The space I'd built without their help. I had no idea that while I was preparing for surgery, my parents were already figuring something else out. Something that would cost me everything. And that wedding? They were about to pay for it, whether I agreed or not. People always ask the same question when they hear what my parents did. Asterisk, why did you care so much about the condo? As if it was just walls. As if it was just money. They never understand that the condo was never about square footage or resale value. It wasn't about being impressive. It wasn't even about comfort. It was about proof. I bought that condo in San Diego when I was 27. 800 square feet. 1 bedroom. A kitchen so small, you had to close the fridge to open the oven. A balcony barely big enough for a chair and a coffee mug. In San Diego, that cost $574,000. Every dollar of it was mine. No cosigner. No family help. No gifts. Just 8 years of grinding. While Megan was posting beach photos and brand deal dreams, I was working late nights as a software engineer, picking up freelance contracts, saying no to vacations, no to weekends, no to rest. When my friends went to Cabo, I stayed home and cooked rice and eggs. When they upgraded cars, I kept mine until the paint faded. That condo was the first thing in my life no one could take from me. Or so I thought. There was something else about that place no one ever saw. Every morning, I drank my coffee on that tiny balcony and reminded myself that I didn't need permission to exist. That I didn't need my parents' approval to be worthy. That place was quiet, safe, mine. Which is why it hurt so much when my parents talked about it like it was nothing. "You single? You don't need all that space. You can always buy another one." As if it hadn't taken years just to buy the first. As if money grew back once it was taken. What they never acknowledged was that I had already saved them once. 5 years earlier, my father called me after midnight. His voice was shaking. They were behind on their mortgage. Credit cards maxed. Foreclosure notices taped to the door. I emptied my savings account and sent them. Every dollar. I'd set aside for a bigger place someday. "We'll pay you back," my father promised. They never did. They never even mentioned it again. So when I walked into the hospital for surgery on March 15th, I believed naively that the worst thing I was risking was my spine. I believed my condo was safe because it was in my name, because it was legally mine, because no parent would cross that line. I was wrong. But what my parents didn't know, what they couldn't have known, was that while they were planning how to take my home, I already had something they depended on far more. Something that would make losing my condo hurt less than what was coming next. And I realized it just as they wheeled me toward the operating room. The operating room was colder than I expected. Bright lights. Stainless steel everywhere. People moving with quiet efficiency. Saying my name, confirming my date of birth, my procedure, my spine. L. Sever, wool, discectomy. 9 hours. The anesthesiologist leaned over me. Count backward from 10. I got to 7. Then, nothing. No dreams. No darkness. Just absence. While surgeons worked carefully around my spinal cord. While machines breathed for me. While my body lay completely still. My parents were busy somewhere else. Signing papers. Forging a power of attorney. Selling my home. I didn't know any of that yet. When I woke up hours later in recovery, the pain came first. A deep, relentless ache that wrapped around my lower back and crawled down my legs. My throat burned from the breathing tube. My mouth was dry. But the pain wasn't what broke me. The voicemail did. I replayed it again, slower this time. Like, if I listened carefully enough, I might hear remorse hidden between the words. There was none. Only confidence. They'd planned it. They knew exactly when I'd be unconscious. Exactly how long I'd be unreachable. Exactly how fast they needed to move. The cash buyer. The rushed close. The forged signature. They didn't even sound nervous. I scrolled through the text messages I had ignored earlier. We did what we had to do. Family helps family. You'll thank us later. Megan's wedding is going to be perfect. Perfect. Paid for with stolen money? The nurse asked if I wanted to call someone. I already did, I said quietly. She smiled, thinking I meant my parents. I didn't correct her. Because the first call I made after hearing that voicemail wasn't emotional. It wasn't angry. It was precise. I called my father 2 hours after I woke up. He answered on the second ring. Holly, you're awake, he said warmly. How was the surgery? You sold my condo, I said. A pause. Well, he replied. Careful now. Yes. We talked about this. No, I said. You talked about this. I was unconscious. Holly, don't be dramatic, he sighed. We needed to act quickly. The buyer. You forged my signature. Another pause. Longer. Forged is a strong word, he said. We facilitated the paperwork. You committed fraud, I said calmly. That's a felony. His tone shifted immediately. After everything we've done for you, he snapped. This is how you talk to your father? You stopped supporting me when I was 18, I replied. I've paid my own way ever since. This wedding sets your sister up for life, he said. You have a good job. You'll make the money back. That wasn't your decision to make. Silence. Then my mother's voice cut in, sharp and panicked. Holly, you're emotional. You just had surgery. We'll talk later. My father started to hang up. Dad? I said quietly. What? You're going to regret this. The line went dead. 20 minutes later, my mother called. What did you say to your father? She demanded. The truth. She laughed bitterly. The truth is, we sacrificed everything for this family. And now you're threatening us from a hospital bed? You stole my home. We borrowed it. There is no borrowing when you forge a signature. You're selfish, she snapped. You've always been selfish. I let the words sit between us. Then I asked the question that made her go quiet. Mom, I said softly, Do you know who owns the house you're standing in right now? What kind of question is that? She scoffed. Of course we do. Are you sure? She hesitated. Holly, you're on medication? You're not thinking clearly. I'll see you at the wedding, I said, and hung up. Lying there in that hospital bed, unable to stand, unable to walk, barely able to sit up without pain, I felt something settle into place. They thought I was powerless. They thought I had nothing left. They were wrong. Because everything they depended on was already mine. And the countdown had begun. 3 days after surgery, I was discharged. Walking is good, the doctor said, helping me stand for the first time. Just slow, careful. Slow and careful was all I could manage anyway. I moved with a cane now. Every step sent a reminder up my spine that my body was still healing, even if my mind had already moved on. At home, what used to be home, I slept on a rented hospital bed in the living room. The bedroom stairs were impossible. The condo felt unfamiliar, like I was visiting a place that no longer belonged to me. Because, technically, it didn't. That night, my parents called again. I let it ring. Then again, and again. On the 4th call, I answered. Holly, my mother said immediately, her voice switching to soft concern. We've been worried sick. You shouldn't be stressing right now. You shouldn't have sold my condo, I replied. A sigh long, practiced. We did what we had to do. For Megan. For family, my father cut in. You're twisting this. I'm stating facts. You weren't even living there properly, my mother said. You were always working. What difference does it make? I looked around the room. The couch I'd paid for. The framed photos I'd hung myself. The life I'd built without them. It makes all the difference, I said. You're acting like a victim, she snapped. This wedding is in 2 weeks. Do you really want to ruin it? There it was. The real concern? I didn't ruin anything, I said calmly. You did? My father's voice hardened. Careful, Holly. You're talking to us like we're criminals. You used a forged power of attorney, I replied. That makes you criminals. Silence. Then, quieter, more cautious. What do you want? My mother asked. I almost laughed. What did I want? An apology? My money back? Parents who didn't see me as an ATM? I want you to understand something, I said. I know exactly what you did. And I'm not going to forget it. We raised you, my father said. We fed you. Put a roof over your head. You stopped doing that when I was 18, I said. Everything since then has been mine. You wouldn't dare, my mother said suddenly. You wouldn't hurt your own family. I didn't respond. Because explaining my next move would only give them time to prepare. After we hung up, I made the second call that mattered. Not emotional. Not angry. Legal. Marcus Smith, a calm male voice answered. It's Holly, I said. I need to see you. Marcus was a real estate attorney, mid-40s, precise, the kind of man who listened more than he spoke. I'd met him years earlier, during a very different crisis. Is this about your parents? He asked carefully. Yes, I said. And the condo. He came to my place the next afternoon, carrying a slim leather briefcase. He watched me move with my cane, his expression tightening slightly. Tell me everything, he said. So I did. The surgery, the voicemail, the forged signature, the rushed sale. He didn't interrupt. When I finished, he opened his briefcase and laid out documents he'd already pulled. It's worse than you think, he said. My stomach sank. How? They didn't just sign for you, Marcus continued. They used a forged power of attorney. The signature doesn't match yours at all. He slid the page toward me. It looked like a child had tried to copy my name. And the notary? I asked. From Nevada, he said. Flagged before, rubber stamped. This kind of thing happens. More than people think. Can we reverse the sale? Marcus shook his head slowly. The buyer is an innocent third party. Cash purchase. Unwinding this would take years. And even then, there's no guarantee you'd get the condo back. Gone. But Marcus wasn't finished. You do have leverage, he said, meeting my eyes. Significant leverage. I already knew what he meant. What about the house? I asked. He flipped to another document. You still own it? Free and clear. And their lease? He checked the date. Expires 1 week after the wedding. 1 week. I did the math in my head. The wedding was on April 12th. The lease ended April 19th. Marcus looked at me carefully. If you wanted to serve notice to vacate, you could. Legally. Cleanly. I stared at the wall, my mind already moving faster than my body could. No, I said finally. Not yet. He nodded. Then tell me when. After he left, I sat alone in the quiet. 2 weeks until the wedding. 2 weeks until my parents stood in front of 200. People pretending they were proud. Honest, respectable. 2 weeks until Megan walked down the aisle, paid for by my stolen life. They thought this was over. They thought I'd yell, cry, maybe threaten. They had no idea I was waiting. I didn't sleep much that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my father's signature where mine should have been. Saw my mother's calm voice in that voicemail. Like selling my home was no different than returning a sweater. By morning, the anger had settled into something sharper. Focus. Marcus called me the next day. I ran a deeper trace on the condo sale, he said. Timing lines up exactly with your surgery window. They knew you'd be unreachable. I figured. There's more, he continued. The power of attorney was uploaded electronically 2 days before your surgery. That means they planned this in advance. I closed my eyes. So, this wasn't panic, I said. It was premeditated. Yes, that word mattered. Premeditated. It meant intent. It meant choice. It meant that, at some point, my parents had sat together and decided I was expendable. Here's the reality, Marcus said. You can file criminal charges, forgery, fraud, identity theft. Your parents would be arrested. I imagined it for half a second. The shock. The humiliation. The headlines. And then I shook my head. Not yet. He didn't argue. There's another thing, he said carefully. You should know that once the lease expires, you're under no obligation to renew it. I know. I had known since 2021. That was the year everything changed. An old college friend called me late one night. She worked at a regional bank. Holly, I probably shouldn't tell you this, she whispered. But your parents are about to lose their house. Foreclosure. 60 days. They were sure bawan mayan behind. Even after the $30,000 I'd given them. I remembered sitting on my condo floor that night. Back against the wall, phone in my hand. Wondering how the same people, who'd never shown up for me, somehow expected me to save them again. I had a choice. Let them lose the house. Or protect them. Quietly. I chose the second option. Marcus had helped me set it up. An LLC. Anonymous purchase. Clean transfer. I bought their debt and then the property itself before foreclosure finalized. They never knew it was me. They thought a faceless investment company had stepped in. They signed a lease and started paying rent to an account they didn't recognize. Every month, that rent landed in my bank account. I didn't do it for leverage. I did it because, despite everything, I still loved them. But love has limits. And mine had finally found its edge. 2 days later, my sister called. Holly, Megan said, her voice sugary and sharp at the same time. Why are Mom and Dad so upset? I smiled faintly. You should ask them. They said, you're threatening them over some money thing. Some money thing? I repeated. They sold my condo while I was in surgery. A pause. Then, dismissive laughter. You're being dramatic. You re-single? You don't need all that space. 800 square feet. I worked 8 years for that place, I said. And now Megan needs a wedding, she replied. Life isn't fair. There it was. The truth. You knew? I said quietly. You knew I was going into surgery. Another pause. Longer this time. I might have mentioned it, she said. It's not my fault Mom and Dad made the decision. You pointed them at me, I said. Like a solution? You've always been jealous of me, she snapped. You're 32 and alone. No one wants you. And now you're trying to ruin my wedding because you can't stand? Seeing me happy, I took a breath. I'll see you at the wedding, I said. You better not cause a scene. I almost laughed. I wouldn't dream of it. That night, Megan went public. Her Instagram story popped up at 7:43 p.m. A photo of her sitting in a bridal boutique. Mascara streaked. Hands shaking. Caption in soft cursive font. Asterisk, when someone in your own family is so jealous of your happiness that they try to destroy your wedding. Within minutes, the comments flooded in. Stay strong, Queen. Jealousy is ugly. Family should support family. Cut toxic people out. My phone started ringing. Aunts, cousins, family, friends. Not one of them asked what really happened. I didn't answer a single call. Instead, I screenshotted everything. Every post. Every comment. Every message calling me selfish, bitter, heartless. I saved them in a folder on my laptop and labeled it simply, Evidence. The wedding was in 10 days, and the countdown was officially on. By the time the wedding was a week away, my phone felt radioactive. I stopped checking notifications altogether. Every time I did, it was the same thing, another relative I barely spoke to telling me how disappointed they were in me. Another message reminding me that family comes first. Another accusation that I was trying to sabotage Megan out of jealousy. No one asked for my side. Not once. Megan's Instagram story stayed up for the full 24 hours. Then it disappeared, replaced by a smiling photo of her at a dress fitting. Like nothing had happened. The comments from strangers praising her strength stayed burned into my memory. Some people just hate seeing others happy. I screenshotted that one too. 2 days before the wedding, my cousin David called. He always liked to play peacemaker. The kind of guy who thought calm voices fixed everything. Holly, he said gently, can't you just apologize? For the sake of peace? Apologize for what? Asked. For upsetting Megan. They sold my condo while I was in surgery, I said flatly. There was a pause. Well, I'm sure there are two sides. I hung up. The rehearsal dinner was scheduled for Friday night. I didn't want to go. My back still ached constantly, and walking longer than 10 minutes sent sharp reminders down my legs. But I needed to see them. I needed to see the room, the people, the stage, the battlefield. The restaurant was an upscale Italian place downtown, the kind with dim lighting and white tablecloths that never wrinkle. Megan had posted the bill earlier that day in her wedding planning highlights. E1 Lounten? One dinner? I arrived late, leaning lightly on my cane. As soon as I stepped into the private room, conversation stopped. My mother froze mid-laugh. My father's jaw tightened. Megan whispered something to Daniel and squeezed his arm. Holly, my mother said brightly, recovering fast. We didn't think you'd make it. I wouldn't miss it, I replied. I took the only empty seat far from the head of the table. Every step felt deliberate. Every eye followed me. My father stood to make a toast. Tonight is about family, he said, raising his glass. About sacrifice. About love. Megan smiled, glowing. This wedding represents everything we believe in, he continued. And many people contributed to making it possible. His eyes flicked to me for half a second. I lifted my glass. Said nothing. Daniel caught my eye. There was something there in certainty, maybe curiosity. Megan leaned over and kissed his cheek, pulling his attention back to her. At the end of the night, as people gathered their coats, Megan approached me. "I'm surprised you came," she said, her smile sharp. "I have a gift for you," I said. Her eyes narrowed. "A gift? You'll see it on Saturday," I replied. I walked out before she could respond, my back screaming, my grip tight on the cane. Outside, the air was cool and clean. I took a long breath. They still thought I was bluffing. They still thought I was alone. They still thought they controlled the story. In less than 48 hours, that illusion would shatter in front of everyone they cared about impressing. April 12th arrived bright and clear. Like the day itself had no idea what it was about to witness. The venue was a 5-star hotel overlooking the water. The kind of place where everything whispered money. White roses climbed iron archways. Crystal chandeliers hung beneath a massive reception tent. A string quartet played softly as guests filtered in. Dressed in silk and tailored suits. 200 people. Megan had insisted on that number. "Anything less looks cheap," she'd told my mother. I arrived with Aunt Patricia just before the ceremony began. She walked close beside me, steady and calm, matching her pace to mine as I moved carefully with my cane. "You ready?" she asked quietly. I nodded. In my clutch was a thick manila envelope. Inside were copies of everything's lease agreements, bank records, the forged power of attorney, notarized affidavits. The weight of it felt heavier than the cane in my hand. The ceremony was beautiful. I'll give him that. Megan walked down the aisle in a dress worth more than my first car, smiling like she'd already won. My parents sat in the front row, glowing with pride, soaking in the admiration of Daniel's wealthy family. I sat in the very last row. When the officiant reached the part about objections, a few heads turned toward me. Megan glanced back, her lips curling into a small, satisfied smile. I didn't move. Not here. The vows were exchanged. Applause filled the air. The kiss. Cheers. Perfect. At least, on the surface. The reception began under the massive white tent. The head table sat on a raised platform. Megan and Daniel in the center. My parents flanking them like royalty. I was placed at table 14, near the kitchen, exactly where I expected to be. Dinner was extravagant. Filet mignon, lobster tails, bottles of wine that cost more than my monthly groceries. My father stood and tapped his glass. "Before the toasts," he announced, "I want to say a few words." The room quieted. This day represents family. Sacrifice, love, many. People contributed to making it possible. His gaze swept the room, landing on me just long enough to be intentional. "In fact," he said, smiling tightly, "I think Holly should come up and say a few words. After all, she contributed a great deal." A ripple of awkward laughter moved through the crowd. Aunt Patricia's hand closed around mine under the table. "Now," she whispered. I stood. Slowly. The cane tapped against the floor with each step, the sound echoing in the sudden silence. Every face followed me as I crossed the room and climbed the 2 small steps to the platform. My father handed me the microphone. "Keep it short," he murmured. I turned to face the crowd. 200 people, crystal light, white roses, a wedding built on stolen money. "Thank you," I said calmly. "My dad is right. I did contribute." The room stilled. 6 weeks ago, I underwent a 9-hour spinal surgery. While I was unconscious on the operating table, my parents sold my condo. A sharp intake of breath rippled through the tent. Sold using a forged power of attorney. My mother stood abruptly. "Holly, please," I said evenly. "You had your turn." I opened the envelope and held up the documents. "These are copies of the forged signature. The fraudulent paperwork? Verified." Murmurs turned into gasps. "But I'm not here to ruin a wedding," I continued. "I'm here to give a gift." I pulled out the deed. This is the deed to the house my parents live in. The house they believe they own. My father's face drained of color. In 2021, when they were facing foreclosure, someone bought that house anonymously. They've been paying rent ever since. I paused. That someone was me. The tent erupted. I own that house, I said quietly. And their lease expires in 30 days. Before anyone could speak, a man in a gray suit stepped forward. Marcus Smith, he said. Real estate attorney. I can verify everything Miss Sullivan has stated. Daniel stood up. The money, he said slowly, looking at my mother. The money you gave us for this wedding? That came from Holly's condo? My mother couldn't answer. Daniel stepped back, disbelief etched across his face. You paid for our wedding with stolen money? Megan grabbed his arm. Daniel, it's complicated. He pulled away. Daniel's parents rose from their seats. We need to speak, his mother said coldly. Now. The string quartet stopped playing. Servers froze mid-step. 200 guests watched as the wedding unraveled in real time. I set the microphone down. I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I walked off the platform, past stunned faces. Past my parents' collapse, past Megan standing frozen in white. Outside, the air was cool and quiet. Behind me, everything they'd built shattered. And that still wasn't the end. I didn't leave the venue right away. I sat on a stone bench in the hotel garden, my cane resting against my leg, watching the sun sink behind the water. The air smelled like roses and salt. Somewhere behind me, raised voices echoed through the open doors of the reception tent. The perfect wedding was over. People drifted out in clusters. Some avoided looking at me. Others stared openly, curiosity and shock written across their faces. Cousin David approached first. The peacemaker. Holly, I didn't know, he said quietly, eyes fixed on the ground. I nodded once. Nothing more. Great-Aunt Margaret surprised me next. She gripped my hand tightly. I always said your father treated you wrong, she whispered. Your grandmother would have been proud. That one almost broke me. Then Daniel's mother appeared. Sandra Whitmore. Impeccably dressed, even now. We had no idea, she said calmly. None of this. I know, I replied. She hesitated. Daniel is devastated. But, thank you. A marriage built on lies doesn't survive. She walked away before I could answer. Inside the tent, my parents were unraveling. My father paced, furious and panicked. My mother sat frozen at the head table, staring at nothing. Megan emerged from a side room alone. Daniel wasn't with her. She saw me across the garden and started toward me, rage burning through the tears. Halfway there, she stopped, turned, walked back inside. Smart. An hour later, Daniel found me. His bow tie was undone. His eyes were red. I need you to know something, he said, sitting heavily beside me. 3 months ago, my laptop went missing. I left it at Megan's place. It had my family's financial records on it. My stomach sank. She said it was stolen, he continued. Now I know she was researching us before I even proposed. I didn't say, I know. I didn't need to. We're filing for an annulment, he said quietly. First thing Monday. He stood and walked away, leaving Megan's dream in pieces. The fallout was fast. A guest had recorded my speech. Within days, it was circulating through family group chats, then beyond. People who defended my parents went quiet. My father was placed on administrative leave pending an ethics review. My mother lost her charity board position, then her social circle. Megan lost followers by the hundreds. The bots stayed. The real people didn't. The annulment went through in record time. 1 week after the wedding, I served the notice. 30 days to vacate. My father called me the night he received it. We have nowhere to go, he said, his voice small. You had 4 years, I replied calmly. If you do this, he warned. Desperation turning to anger. You're no longer my daughter. I exhaled slowly. I was never your daughter, I said. I was your backup plan. They moved out 3 days before the deadline. 2 months later, I walked through the empty house with Aunt Patricia. The rooms echoed. Childhood memories clung to the walls. How do you feel? She asked. Sad, I admitted. But free. I rented the house to a young couple, both teachers. The rent goes to a foundation that helps women escape financial abuse by family. My recovery finished slowly. I walked without the cane. The pain faded. Megan texted once. Asterisk, I hope you're happy. You destroyed everything. Asterisk. I didn't reply. I'm 34 now. I own a smaller place. It's mine, again. Here's what I learned. Family doesn't get a free pass to hurt you. Boundaries aren't revenge. They're survival. And sometimes silence isn't weakness, it's preparation. If you've ever been treated like an afterthought by the people who should protect you, know this. You're allowed to walk away. Thank you for listening. And no, I don't regret a thing.